Hi buddy, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be doing a new video for how to trade efficiently, particularly in lane in League of Legends. So, as always, if you enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out a ton on the channel. Special thanks to Dylan for sponsoring this guide. If you'd like to sponsor a guide yourself, just email me at thestrategyprofessor@gmail.com. Let me know what you have in mind. Right now, it's just $30 for a guide. I'll put a lot of research into it, write up a nice Google Doc for you, and produce a video just like this, and I'll put it in a playlist so you can always access it on the channel as well, and a lot of other people can learn from your donation also. So if you're interested in that, just let me know. Also, feel free to drop by the stream anytime you'd like. Starts around 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Most nights usually goes till about 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I try to be very conversational, as helpful and as friendly as I can be with the chat. Try to explain everything that I'm doing as well in the game, to help you appreciate and learn more about the game while I'm playing. So check that out. If you want to ask about a potential guide or you just have a couple of quick questions, then feel free to drop and ask about that as well. And we have a lot of other guides just like this on the channel also, so be sure to check all that out. One recent one that I just did, I think about a week or two ago, is how to carry a support, because I get asked this all the time on the channel. How could you possibly win a support? And all your team's always feeding, you don't get a lot of kills. How do you win? And so I made a whole video about that, and we have dozens and dozens of other videos about similar topics: how to macro better, how to micro better, dodging, champion select, itemization, meta, almost anything you can think of, we probably have a video for it, and we're constantly adding more, so be sure to check all that out. Okay, let's go ahead and get in here. And there are timestamps in the description as well, so you can jump around to your favorite parts if you don't have time to watch the whole thing, or you can split it up if you'd like, if you don't have enough time to watch it all. And you can also speed it up to 1.5 speed if you want, which is something that a lot of people like to do with my videos, because I do tend to be pretty in-depth. I'm from the South in the United States, so sometimes I speak a little bit slower than other people might speak, so you can probably speed it up to 1.5 if you want to crank through it as well. Okay, let's go ahead and get in here. So just a few generic tips in general. I always throw these out there because I get asked all the time some version of this, so I'll give you the generic tips first, and then we're going to go to the 5 specific tips for laning in League of Legends. So just in general, mute everybody and make the correct play. I just disable ally chat, enemy chat, just all chat. It just doesn't really matter, honestly, because 99% of things can be communicated with pings, and if they don't understand what your pings mean, they're not going to understand what your words mean either, most of the time. So the vast majority of chat is either people complaining about stuff, being outright toxic to each other, or just some kind of pleasantry, like good job, man, or something like that. And you can express that with an emote, right? Somebody makes a good play, you can put up a funny emote or like a thumbs up emote, or you can, question mark them in a good way if they make a major outplay. There are lots of ways to communicate how you're feeling, if it's a positive feeling, without having the chat enabled. And if it's a negative feeling, it's probably a good thing. That can be good for you too. If you're tempted to rage out there, if something bad happens and you always love to start typing, if your chat's just completely disabled, then you can't even do that. So it can help save you from yourself sometimes as well to have that. So I recommend, if you're just frustrated, just talk to your monitor at first, just yell at your monitor or whatever, but do not type it. And the main reason is you just will lose more games if you type. That's it. Even just saying the simplest of things can trigger some of these kids out there, and you just lose more games. It's that plain and simple. So, occasionally, yes, there is that 1% where maybe you need to communicate something that's a little more complex, that's difficult to do with chats, like set up a 1-3-1 split push or tell someone to build a certain item or something. But most of the time, you can communicate most things with ping. So I highly recommend just disabling the chat. Okay, another thing is focus on process, not results. So just focus on becoming a better player and don't worry about what your win-loss ratio is. Sometimes people go on loss streaks even though they're playing pretty well. It happens. In League of Legends, there are going to be a certain percentage of games that are just unwinnable. And that's just all there is to it. You don't even see anybody, even the highest challenger level players do not have a 100% win rate. Even the pros do not have a 100% win rate in solo queue, right? If you go look at challenger, the highest win rates for anyone that has 100 or more games are usually going to be like maybe 60-something% win rate. And the vast majority of them are going to be 55 to 60%. And a lot of those top-end challengers are playing against people much lower than them. Usually they'll end up playing against at least some diamond people because there are not enough challengers to go around. There's only 100 of them, right? I guess 200 of them these days. So It's very rare that you see a game with all challengers. So many of these challengers are even playing against lower ranked people. Like that would be the equivalent of if you're gold 4 playing against bronze people, to that extent. And they still only win like 55 to 60%. So don't worry, it happens to everybody if you go on a loss streak. At the same time, don't just rest on your laurels. If you go on a nice win streak, that doesn't mean that you're not making mistakes also. So it's just a lot more useful to just think about trying to become a better player, just work on a couple of things at a time, and just slowly, just work on your knowledge, work on your mechanics, and just get better. And as you get better, your rank will go up over time, I promise. So just don't worry about, your wins or losses too much. Just focus on improvement. Play champs you have experience on. If you're really trying to win, make sure you have experience on the champion. You don't want to go into ranked games playing first-time champions or champions you don't really know what you're doing, or you're just going to get losses. If you don't care about winning, if you're just playing for fun, or you are, you just want to learn a champion in ranked, just be prepared to lose some games, and if you're okay with that, then you're okay with that. But I see people sometimes complain, oh my god, I keep losing all these games, no, look at their op.gg or whatever, and it's like, okay, they have 3 different games on 30 different champions in their last 90 games, right? So that's a huge problem, is you need to narrow down your champion pool to 3 to 5 champions max in one role, and that'll help you climb a lot if you're looking to climb. Once again, if you're just looking to have fun, that's a different thing. But if you're looking to climb, you need to have a smaller champion pool. Play meta champions if possible. If you just really love Master Yi support, you've got 1,000 games on it, and you just have to play it, I guess you have to play it. But it would probably be much better right now to play something like Nautilus or Leona or Nami as of the making of this video. So if you can play strong champions, then try to play them. Sometimes people ask me, well, should I play something I have experience on, or should I play something that's good? And, a lot of times I want to say, well, that's not mutually exclusive. You can try to get good on good champions if you want to climb. I mean, it just depends on how far you want to go to climb. I mean, pro players, sometimes they have to play champions they really don't like to play, but their coach tells them they need to learn how to play it because it's a good champion. And so that's just how it is, because they're fully committed to trying to win. Now, you don't have to be that hardcore about it. You don't have to play stuff you actively dislike, in solo queue. But, you might, depending on, which champions you enjoy, you might have to expand your enjoyment to some of the champions that are really good right now. So ideally practice the champions in normal first, at least maybe a few games, and then go play them in ranked, or at least practice in flex or something, and go play them in ranked. But the ideal situation is you play something you have some experience on that's also a strong champion. Try to shot call more. We'll talk about that a little bit more here, but try to communicate with pings. Tell your team where to go in terms of objectives. Tell them when a gank might be coming in. Tell them when you're rotating. Tell them when you need to back up. Tell them when you have too much gold and you need to go buy. Tell them when your top laner's TP is down. Tell them when the enemy flashes. Just communicate everything. Any information you can possibly think of, you need to try to communicate that with your team. Try to die 3 times or less. It's pretty straightforward. There are some times where that's not possible, but I think that's a good goal to aim for. A lot of people think if you trade kills, that's good. It's usually not good, because you're losing your presence on the map, and if you're the best player, you need to be on the map. Just think about it this way. If somebody the 15th person on the bench was able to get Michael Jordan fouled out at the same time, he got in foul trouble, or LeBron James or Kobe, or pick your player, James Harden, whoever, Steph Curry, that's not a good trade, right? It's not a good trade if Steph Curry has to go to the bench in the first quarter because he has 3 fouls, and the person on the enemy team who has 3 fouls is the 9th person on the bench. Not a good trade, right? It's yes, 2 people are sitting, but one person's more valuable than the other. And if you think of yourself as someone who deserves to climb, you should be the MVP on your team, or very close to it, one of the top 3 people on your team, right? And so that means that, or I guess one of the top 2 people probably on your team, that means that you don't want to be on the bench. You do not want to be in the fountain. Okay, now some people think it's worth it. They'll debate it, but honestly, especially as a support, I don't think it's worth it most of the time. If you can take out their all-star player, I guess, it could work, but in general, every time you die, there's something you could have done to not die most of the time, and you want to figure that out and try to, get the good outcome without dying. Okay, 1 ward per minute. It's pretty simple. It's a goal to shoot for. You don't always have to have that, but I think it's just nice, easy to remember. And then 1 control word per 5 minutes. Consider dodging a game if 3 or more things seem bad about your team. So if 3 or more people are off roll, they have low experience on their champions, they have a low win percentage, or they have really weak meta champions, like a Teemo jungle or something. I had someone like that the other day. Consider dodging immediately if there are people arguing or trolling. I have a whole video about dodging. Just check it out on the channel if you're interested. But you need to be dodging games also if you want to climb. I like to use Professor. It doesn't actually have it up here anymore because I reset my browser. But you can copy paste the names of everybody here, and it'll tell you their experience and win rates on certain champions. Okay, let's go ahead and move on here a little bit. I just wanted to go over those really basic elements of climbing that you need regardless of the video and regardless of the role. Okay, so resources in general. The main way that you win in League of Legends is you get more resources than the enemy. Okay, now these concepts are going to fall into what we're talking about down here, so I just want to mention these really quickly. That this is what I talk about a lot of this in my how to carry a support video, because a lot of people think it's just gold and that's how you win. But it's also information management and time management. These are 2 things that supports are really, really good at, potentially, if you're a good support. So you may not have the best gold, but you can have really good gold efficiency, and you can gather and distribute information and help your team manage time really well also. So main resource, gold, that's an easy one. Your team wants to get more gold than the other person. There are several things that go into this, though. It can be kills, it can be CS, it can be towers, and it can also be denying those things to the enemy. So if you can deny the enemy 1 CS, then that is functionally about the same as giving your ally 1 CS. You're still getting the advantage off of it. So your team is collecting more gold over time, the more CS you can deny from the enemy. Okay, so gold is an important metric. Objectives, obviously that's huge too. You know, we'll talk about this with positioning on the map, but as towers start to fall, as those dragons start racking up, then it opens up other opportunities on the map for you to gain even more advantage. That can translate into more gold. The tower directly gives gold, but you can start warding up the enemy jungle, denying them jungle camps, denying them vision, which is going to make it easier to take objectives and get rotations for more kills, more towers, and it'll help you snowball a lot. So objectives are huge, towers in particular, but also dragons, barons, all that kind of stuff. Cooldowns are another resource people often don't think of. If someone doesn't have an ability, then that is a massive, massive advantage to you in a fight. So if a Blitzcrank misses a hook, and then you engage and fight them 2v2, he's missing like half of his power. So he might as well be half of a champion if he misses that hook, right? Or most of the other hook champions become a lot weaker if they miss their cooldown, right? If Ezreal uses his E to dash forward to try to grow aggressive on your AD carry, then he's going to be a lot weaker if you CC him because he can't dodge anymore, and he's going to be close range. And Ezreal, a big part of his power is being able to stay long range, dodge a lot of stuff, and hit Qs. So he's going to be at a major disadvantage. Or if the enemy is missing their flash, if they have a Soraka sitting there and she had to blow her flash level 1, you're a Thresh, you pop level 2, you can immediately flash Flare and hook her, and there's nothing she can really do about that because she doesn't have her flash anymore. So you want to make sure that you're tracking these cooldowns, we'll talk about that here in a second, and that you're really punishing them when you have a cooldown advantage. Information is another resource. This is one a lot of people don't think about, but this is huge. If you know where the jungler is and you can communicate that with your team, it can dramatically affect the performance of your team. Because if you know, for example, your jungler or the enemy jungler is on the top side of the map, let's say that you have an early ward, over here or something, you put down a ward on their raptors, the jungler is up there, then your jungler is going to know he's going to have a free gank on the bot side, or he's going to be able to get the scuttle for free, or he can go up there and intercept them at their red. So that creates a lot of opportunities. Or if you see maybe your top laner has this tri-bush warded, or maybe the mid laner warded like this bush over here, you see the jungler up there, your jungler's on bot side, then you can push in and go get the dragon off of that. So the more information that you can manage like that, especially with wards, the better. So there's jungler that you can communicate. You can communicate when someone's missing. So if you see the mid laner go missing, for example, let's say you're on blue side, this mid laner goes missing, and you see that from the support role, just ping it. Ping question marks a lot there. If your top laner's overextended here, and let's say that you have some vision down here. Let's say you have like a ward right here. You know he didn't come down through here because you haven't seen him yet. Then just pinging that, just pinging top lane, back, question mark mid lane, and your top laner might back. Now maybe they don't, maybe they still get caught, but if they back up and that mid laner just walked all the way up here, then you just your mid laner just gained an advantage, right? They were just able to kind of catch their breath a little bit, get some CS, maybe even get a back in, buy their items, and they're already on their way back out here, and these guys are going to be, late because they try to rotate up here. They're late. Now your mid laner can get priority, and then maybe they can roam down bottom and make a play with you or make a play on the dragon. Or maybe the wave bounced off of the tower after this guy roamed up. Your mid laner backed, bought some stuff. Now it's pushing this direction. And maybe your mid laner can go up here and make a play on top lane when they're pushed in this way after it bounced off the tower. So it just opens up all sorts of potential possibilities if you just communicate that. If you just say, hey, that mid laner's missing and he's probably going top lane, that can be huge. So just learning how to manage the information is a huge resource. Helping your team out with that. In a support, you're in one of the best positions to do that because you don't have to CS. You don't have to focus on the CS. So you can spend more of your mental energy on looking at the minimap and interpreting the information to help your team out so they can focus on CSing. They can focus on trades because you're giving them all the information they need. It's like you're the coach whispering in their ear, what's going on. So I think that's really helpful. And then tempo is another one. I just kind of alluded to that a little bit, but people often don't think about tempo or time as a resource. But if you push somebody in, you have time. So if you push them in and then you want to rotate over here, it's going to take them, 10 to 15 seconds to clear out that CS. And that might be enough time for you and the ADC to roam middle, get some deep wards in their jungle, go after the dragon, get a really preferable back timing. You grab your Moby boots and you gank. ADC comes here to catch this wave by the time it bounces back. So just getting that tempo, getting that time advantage is huge. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But these are some of the most important resources that you want to consider, not just the gold, but also the objectives, the cooldowns, information that you have, and the tempo advantage that you might be able to get whenever you're thinking about if you should take a trade or not. Okay. So we can break that down. I'll break it down, make it a lot easier. I'll give you some real-world examples here to help you out with that. But that's basically it. You want to do any trades. You want to take trades that give you these things, that give you resources, either give you gold, give you objectives, cooldowns, information, or tempo. Those are the kind of fights you want. If you're going to go negative on the resources, you don't want that fight. You always want to be thinking, how can I go positive on these resources? And then slowly accumulate advantages over time. Okay. So first off, let's talk about cooldowns. These are the 5 things, kind of the 5 tips. Cooldowns, items, wave position, rotations, and game state that are going to implement these ideas about resources that we just talked about. Okay, so let's look at cooldowns here. So you want to play around the key cooldowns on your team, and you always have the timers on these, right? So you don't have to worry about keeping this in your mind. You can always tab and get this information. So you want to look at ults. There's a little green button above the person's name, just above the minimap, and you can look and see that. If it's not green, then they don't have their ult, and it'll have a little, I don't know what you'd call it, like a little clock bar thing where you can see how long it's going to take for them to get their ult back. And I think you might even be able to hover it. I don't think if you hover it, it gives you the time, but if you go into, press the tab button and then ping their ultimate, it'll tell you the seconds on their ult. So if you ping their ult, it'll say like 20 seconds on their ult. So check out your allies' ults, Don't try to engage. If you're Leona and your Ashe has 10 seconds before her ult is up, wait 10 seconds before you engage because then she's going to have her ult. If you engage early, then you're not going to have that really, really valuable resource. So make sure that your team is ready to go. Or if you're trying to team fight later on in the game, your Rumble has 15 seconds on his ult. You need to ping everybody back and then ping Rumble's ult and let people know, hey, he's still got 15 seconds on that. We need to wait on that, okay? So should Rumble be communicating that? Yeah, he should, but can you communicate it? Yeah, you can. So you have to step up and just communicate everything, even if your team is not doing it, even if they should do it, you have to be the one to do it. Or if your team is about to try to take Baron, but your jungler doesn't have smite for 45 seconds, you need to ping that, and you need to tell your team to back off of that Baron so they don't steal it. So should your jungler ping that? Or ping back on the Baron? Yes. But will they? Maybe not. So you have to be the one to ping it. So ults, flashes are really important. You know, make sure that your allies have flash if possible, especially if they're a champion that gains a ton of benefit out of a flash, like a Riven or something who's about to fight. Make sure they have that. Make sure that you have your TP and that you ping the TP. So if you're about to fight bot lane, ping your top laner's TP so they know to get ready if they want to come bottom, right? So if you ping their TP like 3 times and they're pushed in, like maybe they're in a position where you know, this person might be able to interrupt them with something. Maybe they have a Shen right here in their tower, and your Darius is winning up here top. They're not going to be able to just TP instantly because Shen's going to be right here. But if you ping the Darius a lot and you let them know, hey, we're going to need you to TP down here, then they can back up into this bush right before you engage, and then they can TP bottom. Shen's kind of a weird thing because you want to interrupt the Shen first and then TP if possible, but you get what I'm saying, right? If you communicate it early, then your top laner can prep and get ready, or maybe they just go back and buy a huge item. So maybe, you know, they have 2,000 gold sitting in the bank and they can finish their Trinity Force. You ping their teleport 3 times, they back, and then they can TP over there with the movement speed out of the fountain. So yeah, just communicate that stuff as much as possible. Ignite, smite, just watch all of those things. So those are the big cooldowns that you want to watch on your team. Also, play around your cooldowns. So basic ability cooldowns. So if you just saw your Lucian dash and do a little bit of harassment with his E, then you want to wait till his dash is back up. Or if you just saw Xayah just activate her W randomly and start auto-attacking the wave to push it, she's not going to have that for like another 12 seconds. So you have to wait 12 seconds. If you see your ally use a big cooldown, or just really any cooldown, you need to wait until that's back up because you don't want to give the enemy that advantage, right? Also, look at your runes if possible, especially things like Aftershock and Guardian. If your Guardian's going to be up in 10 seconds in a fight, just wait 10 seconds so that you have that Guardian. That's a big cooldown. Or if your Aftershock's going to be up again in 5 seconds, wait until you have Aftershock and then go fight. Okay? So just do a real quick glance, check the CDs, make sure everyone's on point as much as possible with their CDs. You're obviously, when you start learning this, it's going to be hard to get everything, but just try to get like a couple of things, right? Just at least start by looking at the ultimates. Make sure your team all has their ultimates before you start a fight, right? And then maybe you can think about your own runes, right? Your own flash and your own guardian. Say, oh, my flash is up in, 5 seconds and I'm Leona. Maybe I can wait on that. Or, oh, my guardian's going to be up in 5 seconds. I can wait 5 seconds on that. And try to punish the enemy CD, so the inverse of that. This is a bit harder to do if you don't know all of the cooldowns in the game by heart, which I'm sure a lot of people don't. But just in general, try to punish it. And I've got just some very loose guidelines here. These are not exact to the second, but these are things that you can think about. I'll just say engage ult. That's going to be a little off, but usually 2 minutes. Macro ult, 3 minutes. Okay, so these are just very loose guidelines, but this is like a clock you can put in your head to try to figure this stuff out. Okay, flash, about 5 minutes. Heal, about 5 minutes. So if you see you get the enemy's flash, right? Your jungler ganks, the Soraka flashes at, you look at the clock, it's about 3 minutes. Just say, okay, I've got until about 8 minutes where I know I can go hard on her and she's not going to be able to flash to get away. Okay? And then you have heal is about 5 minutes, TP is about 5 minutes. So if you see the enemy top laner TP back to top lane, then you know they're not going to be able to TP and interfere in your bot lane for the next 5 minutes. That means if your top laner has TP, they might be able to come down, or you might be able to make a play on Dragon or something with your TP. Just communicate that to your team. If you're going for Dragon, just ping your top laner's TP. Okay. So then you're just letting them know. Maybe they don't come down. It's nice if they do. Maybe they don't. But at least they know that you know they have TP, and that you're probably expecting that they might TP down. Okay, Ignite is about 3 minutes. And Engage ult. So this is something like a Nautilus or a Rakan, a Leona. A lot of these are going to be about 2 minutes, so about 120 seconds. Leona's is 90 seconds, Rakan's is 140. And that's just kind of a ballpark number you can have in your head, right? So it's going to change according to how much CDR they have and the specific champion. But that's about right for engage ults. Anything that is a macro ult is about 3 minutes. So something like a TF teleport, Galio ult, Karthus ult, Talia ult, Rise ult. All of these are going to be about 3 minutes. That's 180 seconds. Now some are longer. Karthus is 210 seconds. Soraka's is 160 seconds on her ult. But once again, just some guidelines for you there. Anytime a champion throws out like a hard engage ability like a hook, just think 20 seconds early on. Like a blitz hook, thresh hook. Pikes is faster. Pikes is like 12 seconds. But just in general, just think, okay, there's a hook. I got about 20 seconds if they miss a hook. So you have a long window there. Anything that's like a dash type of things, like an Ezreal E, a Lucian E, a Kai'Sa E. A lot of those abilities are about 15 seconds. And then a poke ability like a Nami W, just like a Sona Q, a Soraka Q. Some of those are going to be a little bit faster. I think Soraka's level 1 is like 8 seconds. But those kind of poke abilities are usually about 10 seconds. So that gives you some time, gives you an idea of how long of a window you have to punish them. So Blitz misses that hook. You're like, okay, we've got 20 seconds to go in and try to make a play on this guy. Or Lucian just randomly dashes to try to last hit a minion. You're like, okay, I got 20 seconds. Or I have about 15 seconds to make a play on this guy. Okay, so you want to try to punish those CDs as much as possible. So if you see any of those things, try to do something for it. And punish every CS that you can. So if you're sitting here in lane, just figure out, and it depends on the matchup. You may not be able to do this all the time. But just see how much like you can take away from them in terms of resources. Mana and health are also like individual resources that are really important. So if they run out of health, they die. Or they have to back up. If they have to use mana to CS, that's mana they're not using to harass you, right? So you want to try to do as much as you can while they're harassing. So if we put out, say there's like 3 minions here or whatever left on the wave. Put these out here. Their AD carry's trying to do stuff. Their support's just like hiding in this bush or whatever. Their AD carry tries to go for a CS. Both of you should be hitting them with stuff. Like try to auto attack if you can. Look for an engage. Hit them with a skill shot. Just do something to make them scared. Because you know where they're going to be. Whenever they use their animation to auto attack, they're going to be in that spot while they're using that animation. Okay, so that means they're not hitting you. So if you walk up with Nami, they're about to auto attack this minion. You can W them and auto attack them. And they're not going to auto attack you back with that one auto they just used on the minion. Right? Or you know that you're going to have a higher chance to hit them with a bubble or a Zyra E or, you know, just any skill shot when they're going to last hit there. Because then they have to choose. You know, even at higher elos where people are expecting you to harass them like that, if you throw a Nami bubble right there, they might have to back off of that wave. Right? Or maybe you throw your Nami bubble and the Ezreal is going to get hit and he has to E away. Right? So maybe that E is like a 15-second cooldown. Your Nami bubble is like a 10-second cooldown. So now you know, okay, I'm going to have 5 seconds when he gets back when he's not going to have that E. So I'm going to try to hit him with one more bubble. Right? So you're just trying to do as much as you can to pressure them to where they're going to miss CS or they're going to have to use mana or use some important cooldowns like their dash in order to get away. So just punish everything that you can. And part of this is going to come down to how your laner is behaving too. Your support or your AD carry, depending on which position you are. So if you're up here, you know, if they have like a Draven right here, and your AD carry's Caitlyn, and she's playing this far back, trying to last hit minions, you know, and you're Soraka, and they have like a Leona, like Draven right here and Leona right here, you can't walk up like this and try to hit a Q. Because the Draven could hard engage on you, the Soraka can hard engage, and they're going to trade back really hard because your AD carry is basically AFK out of the picture. So sometimes, even if you think you can be landing some poke, if your AD carry is just not having it, you don't want to break kind of the line of scrimmage there. You don't want to be off sides as much as possible. You want to try to be like side by side with your AD carry doing stuff. Because if you go too far forward most of the time, you run a much higher risk of being punished. On the flip side, if your AD carry is being, you know, pretty aggressive and positioned up here to harass, you don't want to be back here as a support, you know, Janna or something, just kind of hanging out, ready to shield them, right? You need to try to be up there as much as you can be. Now, if they're doing something stupid, if they're like chasing the enemy AD carry over here, and you know their jungler could be there, or you just know you're going to lose the fight, yeah, don't do that. Just let them die. But most of the time, ideally, you're both up here trying to pressure the enemy off of this wave, right? So that's something that you need to be trying to do, but don't force it if your AD carry is not doing it. Yes, maybe it's bad, maybe they should be doing it, but the reality of the situation is if they're not doing it, if they're uncomfortable, if they're like first time in that champion, they're auto-filled, they're really high, they're really tired or whatever, and they just don't want to take advantage of the lane, you just got to let it be. Even if they're playing Draven and you're playing like Zyra and the enemy's playing, you know, Vayne Janna, or something, you know, that's like relatively passive where you're like, we should be like slamming this lane, but the Draven's just sitting there, just chilling. You might have to just give them the free lane. So it is what it is. But yeah, so try to try to punish as much as possible. If you get really far ahead, zone. Try to zone. This is a little bit more advanced, but like, if you guys get a really good trade and they're down to like 30% health, and both of you are at like 90% health, just step up here and zone. Just don't even let them like have a hit at the minions, and then it'll probably start slow pushing, as they call it, and that can set you up for a lot of good opportunities. We'll talk about like lane management here in a second, but if you're going to zone them off of the CS, then that's going to be really good as well. Okay, and just in general, try to understand the basic power level of champions. Now, there's a lot of different champions in League of Legends, so this is just going to take some practice and time. But just understand that things like Draven, Misfortune, and Jhin are going to be really strong in the laning phase, and then Zyra, Leona, and Nautilus. And then things like Ezreal, Vayne, and Twitch are going to be relatively weak in the laning phase usually, and things like Janna, Sona, and Rakan, they're going to be relatively weak. So, in general, the strong champions are going to be champions that have really high base damage on their abilities, don't require a lot of items. It's like the Draven, the Misfortune, the Jhin. And the champions that are usually like really auto-attack based, that require numerous autos that don't have that much like innate damage in their abilities, they're going to be weaker in the laning phase. So that's like your Vayne and your Twitch, who's like later on, because of the bonuses they get with attack speed scaling, they can be really, really good, but their early game burst is really low. And the same is kind of true of Ezreal, because he has to get Tear of the Goddess, which is super weak early. Or like a Kai'Sa that rushes Tear is going to be pretty weak early. So it just takes a little bit of time to practice those. But in general, just think, does this champion have really high base damage abilities? And if it's yes, you need to be careful. If it's no, then you could maybe be more aggressive with them. Okay, let's talk about items a little bit. So that was cooldowns, so make sure you're punishing cooldowns, tracking your cooldowns, tracking the enemy's cooldowns, at least with this kind of estimation chart here, and try to get your punish in as long as you can for trades, or get the best trades in that you can. Okay, items. So you need to be tabbing often and looking at the items. You need to be looking at a lot of things with tab. You need to be looking at items, and you need to be looking at cooldowns as much as you can in the tab button. But items, you definitely need to be looking at it. Especially when you back. Whenever you back and you're walking back to lane, that's a perfect time to tab. I know for some people it might be difficult to tab, you know, while you're in lane, trying to like trade and CS and all that stuff. But at least look when you're going back to lane. And when the enemy shows up to lane. So keep that in mind, that like, if you're walking back to lane and the enemy's walking back to lane, let's say they're right here. Let me reset this. Let's say you're right here and they're right here, and you haven't actually seen them in a field of vision yet. You're not going to see their items yet, okay? So it might look like they still have a Doran's Blade, and you might say, oh, my AD carry has a BF sword. They only have a Doran's Blade. Let's fight. But like once they actually come into vision, you need to make sure you tab again, and you're like, oh, wait a minute. He has a Doran's Blade also. It's not quite, or he has a BF sword also. It's not quite as, we don't have quite as much of an advantage as I thought. So just make sure you tab when you actually see people, because it does not show you their item unless they get spotted by a ward or a champion on your team. Or like a tower or something. Okay, so make sure you're tabbing. Respect those power item differences. Completed items are way, way stronger than their components usually. So even if your AD carry has a BF sword, a pickaxe, and a crit cloak, and the enemy has Infinity Edge, you might be thinking, oh, that's not that big of a difference. That's only like 425 gold. but it's a really big difference because completed items have certain passives and actives on them that are way stronger than their components usually are. Okay, so like Infinity Edge is a big one, Blade of the Ruined King is a big one. If one person just has the Billswater recurve bow and the other person has the completed Blade of the Ruined King, it's a massive difference in how much damage those items are going to do. So definitely keep track of that. Look at components. And just in general, once again, this is really broad, but just when you're at a basic level trying to start thinking about these things, just think about this priority of stats. AD is going to be stronger than crit. Crit's going to be stronger than attack speed, and attack speed's going to be stronger than mana in the early game. Okay? So if the enemy has a BF sword and your ally has a crit cloak, the enemy's going to be a lot stronger. Versus if the enemy has like 3 daggers and your ally has a BF sword, your ally is going to be a lot stronger in a lot of cases, right? Obviously, with something like tier, that's pretty much just wasted gold in the early game, so you're going to be a lot stronger than they are. So just think about those priorities. So champions that stack a lot of heavy AD are going to be stronger early. So things that are like Draven or Misfortune with the crit build or Jhin, like those are going to be a lot stronger early on than Vayne, because Vayne's going to be stacking attack speed, right? She's going to be trying to get that Blade of the Ruined King early on. And the reason for this is a lot of trades are really fast early, and you just don't have enough time to land a lot of auto attacks. So attack speed is not as useful because you're looking for burst damage in the early game versus sustained damage. Later on, sustained damage can be really good in longer fights, but in these like really quick fights, you want that burst damage. So AD is a big deal. And especially if they have like 20 AD or more, so if they have like, you know, double longsword or more, you need to really be careful around that. You got to respect it. It might not look like much. Oh, you know, the enemy ADC has a BF sword and I have a pickaxe, but it can be a very big deal. I guess that's just a 15 AD difference, but it can be a really big deal in some of these trades. So make sure you're tracking that. Make sure you're doing your best to kind of do those calculations and figure out who's going to be strong. Ideally, you should do that with everybody so you're not caught off guard. So if that Diana mid lane, you know, has a completed Proto Belt plus Zanya's, and everyone else on your team only has like one item, she's going to be really far ahead. So especially if you start hearing such and such is on a killing spree, or you know, you just keep hearing this champion's name keeps getting kills, you need to really keep an eye on that person. And ideally, do not fight strong opponents, okay? So if that Draven has a BF sword and, you know, your Ezreal only has a tier, do not fight them, okay? Even if it's something like you're on a Leona and you're like, but I have to fight. I'm Leona. If I fall behind, then I'm going to be a lot less useful. It's like, well, that's true, but you signed up for that when you picked Leona, right? So you just, you know, you got to just play around what's going on in the game. Even if you are an early game aggro champ, a Leona, a Zyra, something like that, if your AD carry has already died 2 or 3 times and the enemy's like really far ahead, you're just going to have to find another way to try to win the game. And yes, it's probably going to be hard if you're playing an early tempo champion like a Zyra or a Leona, but you can find some moments, right? Maybe through rotations, through vision, something like that. You can still probably find some moments to get back in the game. But do not try to force fights against really strong champions. On the flip side, you need to try to punish weak opponents. So if they have already died once or twice to you and your AD carry is up a BF sword and they only have a pickaxe, you need to try to force that fight if you can. If it's safe to do so, you need to be looking for it. So don't just sit and chill. If your AD carry got a couple of kills and a double kill, you know, let's say that, where's the minions here again? Let's throw those minions up there right around this wave. Just like we were talking about, just get up there and bully them. Do not let them sit there and farm, right? So if you're blue side and your AD carry is really far ahead, get up here and zone them out. Do something with that advantage, right? So because you're a lot stronger, then you should be, you know, looking for those trades. And if they don't respect it, you have a couple of options. Either you can totally freeze them out. If you can catch a freeze right here near your tower, you can freeze them out of golden experience. Or you can push them in and then go look to, which is what I recommend, at lower brackets especially, is just push them in, put them in the tower here with the minions, and then just rotate up to this area of the river. You know, I want to start calling this like command central a lot of times. As a support player, this is kind of where you want to end up being. This is your lane right here, is this river, right? So from here, you can try to get Scuttle. You can get Dragon if your jungler's on the bottom side of the map. You can get them over here to go force a Dragon, because now they have to choose, okay, are they going to take this really bad fight, or are they going to and lose minions at the tower, or are they just going to give you a Dragon? So if they try to come over here and fight you, you're a lot stronger than they are because you have a couple of kills, and they're going to be missing all this experience at the tower. And if you get this kill here, then you can rotate over if there are still a lot of minions on the tower. Right here, if they left this alone, then you can rotate over and maybe even get a couple of plates before you back. Get like 1 plate before you back. So, just putting a huge advantage. And if they die right here, if they try to rotate on you, then you can start warding up their jungle, right? Just putting a ward here, here. You know, dropping a control ward over here. Maybe another ward, like, I don't know, like right here or something. You just ward up everything. So that's what you need to be doing. You can't just get a couple of kills and then just like chill in the bot lane, right? You need to be pushing your advantage, trying to zone, trying to engage. And if they're playing back and they're really scared, say, okay, we're going to go do something else. Scuttle, Dragon, Vision, go take the jungler's camps, go invade and kill the jungler, go rotate and kill mid lane. There's a lot of stuff you can do, but just always be looking for something if you have that item advantage. Some advantage you can get. Try to build items that benefit your strongest ally. This is another thing that goes heavily into trading as well. So even if, you know, you're supposed to be supporting your AD carry, if it's an Ezreal that's 0-3 and you're like, it's just not happening bot lane, but you have a Darius top lane that's 5-0, and you're playing something like a Janna, maybe instead of getting Ardent Censer, just get a Shirelius. Just give the Darius the extra movement speed he's going to need to go in there and dominate these fights. Or you can try to build items that counter your strongest enemy. So maybe, you know, maybe if you were thinking about buying Frozen Heart because they have 3 ADs on their team and you're playing something like Nautilus, and it ends up that their Echo goes like 7-0 mid lane, and everyone else on their team's not doing that well. Maybe you can switch it up and get something like a Mikhail's, or Mikhail's would be kind of weird on Nautilus, but maybe like a Locket or something like that. Just something to help benefit your team. Or if you're playing Thresh, maybe you could go Redemption instead of Righteous Glory. Just think about, are there any itemization options I can do to help my person who's furthest ahead snowball even harder? Okay, so that's the thing with trades and items. You need to make sure that you are ahead or at least neutral on items before you ever fight anybody. And if you're not, don't fight. Okay, but just because you're not fighting doesn't mean that you're not doing anything. So don't just like AFK at your tower, you know, if you can't fight. If your Ezreal's 0-3 and you're getting pushed in by Leona Draven, maybe look for roams. We'll talk about that here in a second with rotations, but maybe look for roams. Maybe look to go do something with the jungler. Try to get some deep vision. Just make something else on the map happen, if possible. You don't ever just want to be sitting, doing nothing, just watching your AD carry, like, slowly lose the lane, if you can help it. Sometimes you get trapped in situations like that, but if you can help it, you should try to do something else. Okay, let's talk about wave position here for the last 15 minutes or so. We'll hit the last few. Okay, so just remember that minions do a ton of damage early. So if the enemy team is pushing into you, if they have like 7 minions and you have 3 minions, do not fight in that early, okay? There's just no reason to fight in that, right? So if you're pushed back here, reset this, right? I think sometimes people freak out, like, if the enemy's zoning you. If it's pushing in, like, it's fine. So let's say that you're sitting here, they hit the level 2 first, kind of common, they're playing something that could kill you, like Misfortune Thresh or whatever. You're back here, your AD carry's playing, I don't know, Kaisa, and you're playing Nami, or something back here. They have the advantage on you, and they're trying to push forward. Let's say that, you know, maybe they have 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 minions, and you have like 2 minions here on your side. Then it's okay. Just let them push into you. Like, do not try to engage. I guess a better example might be if you were someone like Nautilus, and maybe let's say 2 aggressive lanes. Let's say that they're playing like Thresh, Misfortune, and you have Nautilus Jhin, and you're right here, you do not want to try to engage onto this, right, into this minion wave, because they have 5 minions, you only have 2, and they're going to start doing a lot of damage to you. So the better option is just to come down here, just chill, wait until the minions bounce off of this tower. So they're up here, they're bouncing, and then once the wave is about even, that's when you go up and that's when you make your play, okay? Because you're not going to be missing that much. Like, it feels like, oh my god, I'm getting zoned. It's like, oh, you might miss like 1 CS. But I see so many AD carries that'll just walk up and like refuse to give up any CS at all. And they'll, they'll try to walk up here and hit this, and then they'll, get pressured and potentially killed by the support of the other AD carry. So it's okay. Just let it push in. If you can't really win a fight, then don't take the fight. And you're not going to win the fight early if they have a lot more minions than you. So keep that in mind. So do not fight a disadvantageous minion fight, okay? If your jungler's coming in, they're coming in hot here, and they have like 10 minions stacked up, you need to ping them back. Like, do not come in with those 10 minions. As they might be able to turn it around, especially if their jungler is like waiting right here or something and they jump out and they have a minion advantage. It's going to be big. So those minions hurt. I don't remember the exact numbers that they do, but I feel like it's like 20 or 30 damage per minion shot early on. Like, it's a lot. And if they're, if they have 3 more minions than you, that's every second, someone on your team is going to be taking 30 more damage or like 60 more damage than the enemy is taking. So you don't want that. Also, minions just get in the way. Like, they start blocking your skill shots. They can creep block you so you can't move where you want to move to. It's just a really bad situation when you're fighting an enemy minions. So there are a few different ways you can position the wave when you're thinking about whether or not you should fight. And some of this is going to depend on what you're trying to accomplish in the lane. So the first position is just defensive position at the tower. So this one would be where you're like right here, you try to freeze it outside of the tower, and then they're going to come up and pressure you here, and you're just going to have to farm under tower. Now, I call this, a lot of times, if you're in this position, this is really an amateur type of position, I think. It depends, at a pro level or maybe higher level, it could be okay. But most of the time, this is a very bad position to be in. Now, sometimes, the first level of thinking is, well, the jungler can gank them a lot easier. And that's true if the jungler comes down and if the jungler, like, circumvents their wards and if these people are not paying attention and don't back up, right? So likely, though, if they push up like that, they're going to drop their wards around here if they're pushing into you. And then if your jungler comes down, they're just going to back up. You're going to have minions right here that you're not going to be able to run across a lot of the times, and they're just going to be able to get away, right? Now, sometimes, if they're just, like, hard pushing into you, you're going to have to take on that position. But I don't think most of the time you should choose to opt into that position. Okay? Another reason that this can be potentially bad is you can get dove. This tower will not keep you as safe as I think a lot of times people believe it will. Especially if they have a tank support, which is very common right now, with Aftershock, and if the jungler is going to come down too. So if they build up a slow push here and they crash on your tower with like 7 to 10 minions and the jungler comes in, from around here, depending on your matchup, like, it's going to be really difficult to survive that. And a lot of times, people might say, oh, where's my jungler? My stupid jungler should be down here. And it's like, well, yeah, maybe they should, but they're not. And the thing is, you should have auto-attacked the minion wave more, because if they don't have a huge wave, it makes it way, way harder for them to crash and to dive you, right? So if you see them setting this up, like if they're setting up a slow push like that, you need to try to hit those minions and slow it down so it doesn't hit your tower. So if you're the support, you might have to start casting some spells on those minions so that they can't crash into you. Or you might just have to abandon the tower. So if you're getting pushed in a tower like this, if you're trying to position this, you might have to ward right here. And if you see this jungler like rolling up right here, and you're right here under tower, you see this is about to crash, you just need to bolt, man. You just got to let it go. And it sucks, maybe your AD carry stays there, and then they come over here and they dive and they kill your AD carry, and then they're going to just spam question mark ping you. But the thing is, in a lot of situations, if they have that huge dive going and it's 3v2 under tower, and they have a tank support with Aftershock tanking those tower hits, you're going to die a lot of times. So It's a lot better if just your AD carry dies than your AD carry and you. So you need to ping your AD carry back and just run. And if both of you get out, yeah, they're going to get tower plates. You're going to lose a lot of CS at the tower, and that sucks, but that's just the price that you have to pay for your jungler camping top. You know, you always want to think, like, sometimes you can't make the best decision, you just have to make the least bad decision for your team, and that is the best decision, right? So, yes, in an ideal world, you would get the CS, your jungler would be down here to counter gank for you, even your mid laner might come down and see that coming, and then they all just counter gank for you, and you get a triple kill, and then you get the dragon, and you take their tower, and you snowball the game. But in reality, that just may not be happening. So that's why I really caution people a lot of times against this. I know there are some people out there that have questioned this on the channel, and other content creators on other channels as well will tell you stuff like, you know, try to set up a freeze outside your tower and things like that. It's very different if you're top lane setting up a freeze like that is a lot different than bot lane trying to set up that freeze for a lot of different reasons. I mean, number one, bot lane's going to attract a lot of attention because there's a dragon. So it's a lot more likely you're going to get dove. And having 3 people dive you is a lot more dangerous than having 2 people dive you top lane. Although that happens top lane all the time too, especially in pro, where the jungler and top laner will dive. So, very dangerous setup, but if you are in a losing situation, if you're, you know, playing Janna, Ezreal into, you know, Jhin, Leona, you might have to try to have this position. But if at all possible, you need to be auto-attacking the wave and do not let it crash into the tower if you can help it, especially if you know their jungler's in the area. If you see their jungler and you know it's crashing, you gotta leave. Okay, so that's probably the worst position you can be in. Also, on top of that, before I reset that, whenever you do this, even if the jungler doesn't come in and they don't dive you, you're giving up priority. So when they have you in the tower like this, their support, and you'll see me do this on stream all the time if we get priority, their support's going to come over here, you know, ward stuff up. They're going to, like, ward the dragon, ward this. They might even come over here and, like, make a play on mid lane. They might get in here and get some deep vision, right? They might start warding all this stuff up. They might sneak a dragon. They might put a pink on the dragon, sneak the dragon with the jungler. And there's not a lot you can do about that if you're pushing the tower, because you're not going to have any information. It's going to be dark. You have no clue where they are, right? They could be doing dragon. They could be rotating mid. You know, they could be hanging out in this bush right here just waiting on you when you come out. Like, you just don't know. And so that's the thing, is you're giving up a lot of information. You're giving up a lot of tempo, a lot of real estate on the map. And I just think it's really, really risky to do that. Okay, but sometimes you have to. Sometimes, if they have a hard engaged champ like a Leona or a Nautilus, you are taking away a lot of their 2v2 potential if you're close to the tower, as long as you don't get dove. Okay, so this is kind of a neutral position in the middle of the lane. I think this is probably going to be best if you're playing something that needs to hard engage, that needs a little run room, right? So something like a Nautilus, a Leona, a Blitzcrank or whatever. And typically, you're going to try to get your support in the second bush here and just see if they can get some good hooks in there. Especially with Leona, she has to have that run room. If you're pushed up all the way to the top, you can't really do anything as Leona, right? But a lot of those hard engaged champs also have a hard time if you push up that far. So this is a pretty neutral position. It's good for those all-ins. You have to be a little bit more careful because they can just come around and gank you. It's a little bit harder for your jungler to gank this as well, potentially, but it's really good for your engages. You do have the opportunity, if you're in this position, to push really hard if you see a chance, and then you can rotate up here and maybe help your jungler do a scuttle or like fight with their jungler in the river. It's not going to be as easy as if you're in the forward position, but it still is doable. So this is an okay position. I really only recommend this if you're really far ahead and you're trying to zone. So if you're trying to step up here and stop them from getting experience, or if you are playing one of those hard engaged champs and you really want to start a fight. Okay, so that's kind of the middle neutral position. And then my favorite position that I think most people should default to most of the time is the forward position, or at least where the minions are in a forward position. So ideally, you push it up as much as you can into their tower. Now, sometimes they'll freeze it there. It depends. If you can fight them, a freeze is not a huge deal. But if they are stronger than you, sometimes that can be a problem. So if they are really far ahead, if they're playing that Leona, Draven, or whatever, and your Ezreal's 0-3, you really don't want to be up like that, because then they're just going to stand in front and freeze you out, potentially. Okay, so you got to be careful with this. But I think that in general, this is the best position, because that's going to give you the most map pressure. So you don't do this so that you can stand here and try to just like harass them under the tower most of the time. That can work depending on your champions, but it's not usually worth it. And if you do it that way, that is really risky, because the enemy can like blast plant over and then come around and gank you, right? So that's why a lot of people say, don't push forward like that, you can get ganked. Well, the thing is, if you push forward like this, you don't have to be up that far. You just push. You know it's going to take them 10 seconds. Is that right, Rory? Can you say 10 seconds?
10 seconds.
That's right, 10 seconds. It's going to take 10 seconds for them to clean that up. And so that's 10 seconds head start you have to come up here, like we talked about earlier, get into the central command, right? Where you get the scuttle, you get the dragon, go ward up their jungle, go fight their jungler. Do you know how enraged that makes the enemy jungler? If you come up and you have like this warded and this warded, their blue's about to pop, right? They just think they're just sitting here, they're just chilling. You've got that stuff warded. They're just sitting here, just having a nice peaceful time doing their blue. And then just out of nowhere, boom, here comes the support, AD carry, and the jungler, and they all collapse, kill you, take your blue, take the entire blue side of your jungle, and then take dragon. Like, that'll cause so many junglers just to AFK out of the game right there. So really, that's what you want to be doing, is like pushing forward and then seeing what you can do with that tempo that you have, right? Can you go, you know, get the vision, gank, go roam middle, get scuttles. So that's why I think it's the best position, is to push forward and get the advantage there. But yeah, don't just sit there and just auto attack people under tower. It's not worth your time and it's too risky. It's a lot better to go do something else with that tempo, or just get a good back on them. Just get back earlier than them. Maybe grab some mobility boots. Go try to make a play middle. You want some more chocolate chips? You gotta talk to mommy about that. Yeah, you gotta talk to mommy. Go talk to her. Go get her. Go get her. Okay, so the last few minutes, and we've hit on this quite a bit, but you want to be aware enemy ganks and rotation. So basically here, when you're thinking about trading, sometimes the best trading is just not to trade at all, like in terms of like actually fight and hit the enemy. Sometimes it's just push them in a tower, and then you get the advantage there. You use that resource, use that tempo resource, that time resource to go get something else. So then you're getting free stuff. You're getting free vision, free information, free scuttles, free dragons. That's a trade, right? You're trading like your advantage in time for a resource, either a dragon or gold or vision. So not all trades involve landing a hook and going to fight 2v2 in the enemy, right? Sometimes it's enough just to push in and go get something else. Okay. The best trades are really high percentage trades, and that is a very high percentage trade, because it is unlikely they are going to be able to match you with whatever you're trying to do, because you're so far ahead. If they do want to match you, if they do want to run out here, like we said earlier, let's say that, you know, they do want to try to stop or like help their jungler getting invaded, well, you've already got the jump on him, so he's probably going to be dead by the time they get there, and they're going to be losing a lot of gold and experience at the tower, so you're still winning the trade. Even if they force you back, right? Even if, like, maybe they have this warded right here, right? Like, maybe they have the dragon pit warded, you didn't sweep it. You start to come up here, your jungler comes in here, and then just, like, everybody rolls up and jungler, like, flashes over, and somehow these guys get away or whatever. They're still losing all that stuff at the tower, so you're still winning that trade. Okay, rotation. So you need to be aware before you fight of what the enemy, like, what's the status, particularly of the enemy jungler and the enemy mid laner. Okay, so where is the jungler? If you don't know where the jungler is, you need to be extremely careful whenever you start a fight, because if the jungler is there, you're probably going to lose the fight, obviously. 3v2, unless you're really far ahead, or you just really outplay him, or you just have a much, much stronger comp, like you have Draven, Zyra, and I don't know, they have some really weak jungler and really weak laners. Most of the time it's bad if the jungler shows up and your jungler is not around, okay? So where's the enemy jungler? Where's the mid laner? Where is your jungler is also a thing to consider, You know, if your jungler is close, that does change the calculus, obviously. If your jungler is, like, sitting right here, you know, and y'all are thinking about engaging on them, then if you think you're stronger, it's not going to matter if their jungler is waiting right here to counter gank, right? Because your jungler is there too. So, you know, if your jungler is around, you can obviously be a bit more bold. Let's just say, like, you know, your jungler is, like, kind of far away, maybe on the top side of the map. You need to be very, very careful with that. You also need to know where their mid laner is. So if their mid laner, like, pops out of the lane and you don't know where they are, especially if there's something with a macro ability like a TF or a Talia or a Rise or something like that, you need to be careful. Or if they have a TP. So if they have a teleport mid and a teleport top, you need to be tracking those timers. If they have that teleport, you need to be really careful. Watch out for Shins. Watch out for Karthus ults. You know, it's anything that could be sort of a global ability that can interfere with your fight. Keep an eye on that. And just in general, if it smells weird, like, don't do it, right? If they're acting strange, it's the jungler's there. Like 9 times out of 10, unless they're next leveling you, like if they're bluffing you, they're like challenger or something like that, and they just have random calculated aggression that looks stupid just to fake you out. Nobody's gonna do that hardly. Like nobody's gonna take a bad trade just to set you up to think that they're dumb, so that, you know, 2 minutes later you do the same stupid trade and the jungler's there this time and you fight. Okay, so that's like some super next level stuff that's not gonna mind games that are not gonna be happening in most elo brackets. So most of the time, if they're acting weird, just run away. You know, and the best telltale signs of this, if they've been really passive all lane, right? So they're just sitting there, you've been bullying them all lane, right? And you know, you're playing Nautilus and Jhin, they're playing Janna, Kai'Sa, and just like you've been pushing them in a tower all lane, then just all of a sudden the Janna just runs up here and W's you out of nowhere, right? It's like that should set an alarm going off in your head. If she's been really passive and chill the whole time and she's coming up and you're like, man, that is, if you're thinking in your mind that's really stupid what they're just doing, just assume the jungler is there. Maybe they are just being stupid, but you know, just assume that they're doing something sneaky until proven otherwise, okay? So if their behavior dramatically changes, if they're passive, then all of a sudden they weirdly go aggressive, or they've been like hiding behind minions the entire time, like trying to avoid your hook, and they're just conspicuously like standing like, you know, outside of the minions, like very easy to hook, not trying to juke you at all. Like, I do that sometimes with Rakan when the jungler's close by and they have like a Nautilus or a Leona or something. I'll just, you know, walk and act like I'm trying to juke like outside of the minions just randomly when I usually try to hide behind the minions so I don't get hooked. I'll just like come outside of it and get hooked so that they commit to the fight and then we kill them. So if they're just doing something weird like that, it's like, wait a minute, this guy's been like, he's had really good positioning all game. All of a sudden he's just like looking to get hooked. Or, you know, the Janna or the Soraka is just running at me. I mean, it's a gank, so you need to run away. So that Janna comes up and does that. Do not fall for the bait. Do not hook her as Nautilus. You need to run immediately, even though it might look stupid. Like, you need to get out of there, okay? Or if all of a sudden, you know, they've been aggressive all game, so maybe they've kept you in this tower, right, the entire game. They've had you up here. They've had, like, basically this wave position. Then all of a sudden they start backing off, right? Like, they're hanging out back here. They're letting you push up a little bit out of nowhere. And you're like, wait a minute. You know, I'm playing Janna right here. Why is this Zyra playing so far back when the entire time she's been harassing me? I'll tell you why. That's why. Because their jungler is sitting in that bush. Okay, so if they all of a sudden start backing off, acting really chill, letting you push the wave, high probability jungler is going to be there, okay? So just watch out for that. Random aggressiveness, or random passiveness if they've been aggressive. Just any major change in their behavior is going to signal that it's likely there's a gank coming in. Unless, once again, they're trying to next level you and bluff with some occasional, like, just random play or, like, a really bad play, then most people are going to give it away. Okay, so how to track the jungler as well, and then we'll go ahead and end this. I don't want it to be too long, but I did want to be kind of thorough with these tips. So how to track the jungler? Well, the best way to track the jungler is to actually get vision on the jungler. I know this sounds silly, but so many people don't do this, And you can do this with your wards. Now, it all starts with priority in the lane, like we've talked about. So do not hang out under your tower, or you're not going to know where the jungler is. But if you can push forward a little bit, right? You push forward as much as possible. And you can push. A lot of times people will let you push in, especially lower elo brackets. Even if you're playing something like Janna, you can just auto-attack the wave. A lot of people just won't even auto the minions. Just auto-attack the wave with your AD carry. Obviously, don't last hit. Don't make it difficult for your AD carry to last hit. A good rule of thumb is if it's at 50% or less health, do not auto-attack it, or you might mess up your AD carry, okay? You can auto-attack some of the full health minions down to about half. Push it up. And then just get in here and ward the camps. That's the key. You have to ward the camps. So instead of just warding like here and here after you push up, see if you can get some wards like here is ideal, or even here if you can get it. Now the wolves are obviously really risky, but look for opportunities where you can do that. So for example, if you see your jungler fighting their jungler up at Scuttle and you have priority in your wave, like right here, you've got them pushed in, then you know the jungler's up there, so they're not going to gank you. So that's your cue. Just ping your AD carry back, get in here, and ward the heck out of their jungle, right? Or if you see their jungler gank top lane, for example, just say, okay, that sucks. My top laner just died, but I can move these wards up here. And a good place, too, when you come up here to ward this area, so this is kind of the safer one. You can just ward over this wall. Always kind of poke your head in this bush and see if they have a pink, too, if you're doing that. But you can ward over this wall. The better ward is here, which requires a couple more steps. And then from here, you can ward over this wall. And this is a very, very good warding spot. This is even better than here. Like, I used to ward from here to, like, right here. But this is even better because you can do it all in one motion. You don't have to run over here, which is much further up the river. You can just run to, like, right here, and you can throw a ward, like, right here. Or the best one is, like, right here. So that's going to see that whole intersection. But even getting it on the wolves is really important because they're going to go do their camps. Like if you put wards like here and here, like let's say that like these are where your wards are instead, you don't know where they are in terms of their camps, right? And they could path around this. Like they could blast cone over right here, and then this ward's going to be worthless because they're just going to kill you anyways. You're going to see them too late, right? Or maybe you warded like this. Or something like that, right? Like maybe you warded a bush down here, and then you thought, okay, well, if I just ward dragon and ward here, then I'm going to be safe. Well, some savvy junglers are going to, path around this way, trying to dodge your wards, and then they're going to come in, from behind you here. So that's not that uncommon for junglers to try that path, especially if they're dominating your jungler. So if you have the ward on the camps, though, they have to clear their camps most of the time, right? So if you have the ward on their wolves and you have the ward on their blue or their gromp, what is it, Rory? Oh, thank you. That's yummy. See if Mommy wants some. Yeah, go see if Mommy wants some. But yeah, if you ward their camps, then they can't fake that. Like, you know where they are, even if they're not looking to gank. So that way okay, they're bottom side, so then your top laner is going to know, okay, I can go aggressive and fight this one-on-one, even if they're not actively ganking you. It's not only saving you, where you know where they are, it helps the rest of your team too, because then your jungler knows, okay, we can do this. Or maybe, or your top laner knows that. Or maybe your jungler sees them there, they're ganking, or your jungler's like doing golems, you're like, hey, come over here, let's fight this, their jungler's down here. You can push in like this, and your jungler might say, oh, okay, they're probably going to gank after they do their gromp, so I'm going to come in here and wait on them, right? So I'm ready for this counter gank. So just knowing where that information is so huge. So these are some of the best places if you're on blue side. Like I said, here, here, and here are ideal. Sometimes if it's really scary, you can't go that far, you can ward here, or you could even ward here if it's like super scary. If it's like insanely scary, I guess you can ward here, but you want to get as deep as you can get. If you're on red side, it's the same deal, just ward the camps. So you want to try to ward their wraiths if you can, ward like here if you can get it there. If you can't go all the way down that deep, you can at least ward over the pit and see their red, but like right there, and then even warding golems right there. So that's key. So if they want to farm anything, because most people will grab a camp before they gank, like it's possible they could play around this, You know, if you're on red side and they're blue side, where they just straight run right up the lane and just ignore all of their camps and gank you. But in general, most people are going to walk through some part of this area. So that's where you want to do. You want to ward those camps. Try to secure the scuttles. The scuttle gives you extra vision, obviously. That can help you figure out where the jungler is going to be. Whenever scuttle's spawning, it's likely they're going to go check that out. Wherever their buffs are. So if there's a blue spawning or a red spawning, they're probably going to go to that area. Check out the other lanes. If they show top lane or mid lane, make sure you're noticing that. Or if they show on like wards. So if your mid laner wards like Raptors or something, make sure you're pinging that out for your team. And just be careful. If Dragon's up in general, most smart junglers are going to be on the bottom side of the map. Okay, now occasionally they're not, but you need to be thinking, okay, they probably are most of the time. So if you don't know where they are, you have no clue, and there's a dragon up, they're on the bottom side of the map, most likely. So just be careful with that if you don't have that vision. And just look for good opportunities to roam as well with your trading. So if your jungler is on your side of the map, try to do something with them. You know, try to think of yourself as like supporting the jungler too. So they're over here trying to get scuttle, just be in a position where you can help them out with that. Or if you get priority here, you know, the three of you, like we showed earlier, can go and like gang up on their jungler, take their camps, grab all their vision. Y'all can grab dragon. You can do a 3-way gank middle, where all of you come up here to the middle. So just try to work as a unit. You can work around your jungler too. It doesn't just, you don't have to just be married to your AD carry, right? So you can sneak the dragon, get some camps, get some vision. If the enemy mid's pushed up, you know, like this, just see if you can roam, maybe make a play middle, especially if your jungler's in the area. Like maybe your jungler's coming through here. And you as a supporter coming up through here, and then y'all just come in and sandwich them. That's usually really effective. Just make sure you're pinging your ADC back a lot. Now, if your ADC dies, you know, it's sometimes worth it, even if you kill the mid laner. I mean, if they tilt out and go AFK, like, that's obviously bad, but if you kill the mid laner, it's probably worth it, because a lot of times mid laners are more valuable than ADCs, unfortunately, in this meta right now. So if you get your mid laner ahead, there's a good chance your mid laner might come down and help you out later. So if they get like 2 kills on them, if you do this a couple of times, kill their mid laner, and then they have to play really scared and back, then their mid laner might be able to roam down here and return the favor and get your AD carry back in the game. Okay. And then the final thing I'll mention, and we're pretty much out of time here, is don't feel like you have to fight. Don't feel like you have to force fights in the bot lane, especially if your team is winning. Okay? So if it's kind of a tough situation, you're not really sure, like you have Misfortune Leona, and they have like Jhin, Nautilus, and like both ADCs have a BF sword. It's like, I don't know about this fight. It's going to come down to like 50-50, you know, to the last 10 HP or whatever. You don't have to fight that fight. Just don't opt into it. Just, you know, play a little safer. If like your mid laner's 3-0 and your top laner's 3-0, you don't have to do anything fancy in the bot lane, right? You just try not to die. Get as much CS as you can. If you see an opportunity to slam them and win the lane anyways, obviously do it. But if it's one of those like 50-50 coin flip fights, you don't have to take it if your team's winning, right? You can just chill. And if you fall behind, you know, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, but if you fall behind, it's okay. You know, just manage your losses as much as you can, right? If you're having to play defensively because your AD carry picked Vayne and you just decided not to dodge the game, and you're sitting down here getting pushed in, you know, and the jungler, like I said, they're slow pushing you, and then the jungler's going to come in here, just leave, you know, and that sucks because, yes, AD carry's going to die if they stay, and they're going to, you know, spam ping you, and the enemy's going to get all these plates, and that sucks, but you just got to minimize your losses, right? If you're losing lane, or you're in a losing battle, they just outpicked you and chance select, or their jungler's camping the crap out of you, and your jungler is just like, you know, up here counter jungling their, you know, Raptors, while the enemy team is like grabbing the dragon and your red buff and, you know, tower diving you. Well, that's just what you have to work with that game. So you got, you know, like I said before, you just got to cut your losses and just get whatever you can. So just wait on your jungler or wait on your mid laner to come down here and make a play. Don't get impatient and try to force something just because you're getting stomped, okay? It should be the opposite. If you're getting stomped or you're running far behind, regardless of the reason, whether it's you screwing up, the AD carry screwing up, jungler just hard camping you, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Just do the best that you can with whatever situation that you have. If it's just a completely lost cause, if your AD carry is like 0-4 and they just keep diving you over and over again, just see what else you can do on the map. I mean, maybe you can go roam and get mid going. Like I said before, if you're playing like Nautilus, mid laner's pushed up, maybe your Cassidon's having a hard time against Cassiopeia in lane, you can come in here, like hard engage, get this Cassidon a couple of kills, do this twice. Yeah, maybe your mid laners or your bot laner's 0-3, but now maybe your Cassidon's 2-0, and he can start roaming down to help you make some plays. So just see what you can do. There will be games where your bot laner's 0-3, your mid laner's 0-3, and your top laner's 0-8, and you just lose the game. I mean, you lose. That's it. There's nothing you can do about it. But a lot of times you just want to try your best to say, okay, what can I do? Sometimes it's really rough to try to roam top lane to do something. I would say most of the time, don't do that. If it's like a guaranteed kill or something, maybe you can roam top, but that's really far away a lot of the time. I guess if Dragon's not up and Rift is the most interesting objective on the map, and you're going to be able to get a kill, it's like Darius versus, I don't know, some other melee champion top, Darius versus like Ornn or something top, and you can come in and CC and kill him. Maybe it's worth it if you can get Rift afterwards, but in general, you just want to look for mid lane or like try to make a play with your jungler on the bottom side of the map. Okay. On the flip side, if you are absolutely decimating your bot lane and your mid lane and your top lane are feeding, you might have to take more risky plays. So if you're if you're playing Leona Draven and you have 4 kills on Draven and you're not sure where the jungler is, but you do have them pushing a tower, they have no flash, and there's like a really good chance you could just kill them, like you have a couple of armor items or whatever, then you might just have to go for it. Even though it's spooky, even though the jungler could be waiting right here, if your team's behind 6 kills, you might just have to do it. And then you just try to engage, see if you can get these kills off of this dive. And if you do, you might be able to snowball harder. But if the jungler comes out, you're just going to get blown up. So this play right here, maybe if you're down 6 kills, you do this. If you're up 6 kills, you don't do it. Or I guess that's the other way around. There we go. If you're down 6 kills, you do it. If you're up 6 kills, you don't do it, okay? So you kind of got to change your mentality. And try to get vision control as much as you can and look for picks if you're behind. I think, and this might be an entirely different video, I don't want to go too far off on a tangent here, but I've had some people in chat before sort of challenge me on this, and there's been some other people that have talked about it, and a lot of people wonder, what should you do when you're behind? The best thing to do, a lot of times if you can get it, is get vision and get picks, because you're not going to be able to win clean fights most of the time, and you need to be able to stop the bleeding as soon as possible. A lot of people's instinct is, I want to turtle and play ultra safe and only take super safe plays if I'm behind. I think that's the wrong mentality to have. You don't want to go chain feeding into the enemy, obviously, but I think if you just hide and just don't do anything, then they're just going to win the game by default because of how snowballing works. So if your team, if they have all of your tier 1 towers and your team's just pushed in here and you just don't really do anything proactive, if you're just kind of waiting to scale, the meme. Now, sometimes waiting to scale is okay, but if they're up here like this and you're giving up, every dragon, Rift Herald, all of the jungle, all of the scuttles, all of this stuff, you're going to get outscaled, right? Unless you have because they're just going to have so much more gold, unless you have the most insane scaling team fight comp of all time, you're going to lose. So you need to be looking for something. So as a support, if they're pushing up, if their top laner, keeps trying to fight your top laner up here, you got to be thinking to yourself, okay, maybe there's an opportunity here. Maybe I can pink this, try to shut out some vision, maybe get a vision ward around here, maybe see if I can even sneak one here and here, get some zone of control, and then see if we can get some opportunities here. So see if you can creep up here with, if I can click it, see if you can creep up here, maybe get your mid laner to creep up here and try to make a pick, right? Try to pick this person off. So instead of just sitting like AFK at towers last hitting, now you're trying to do something proactive and make a play, right? Or maybe like their jungler is trying to invade and take your red or whatever. Maybe you could have your mid laner come in here and collapse and kill the jungler. So you just got to look for opportunities where you can usually get a pick and make a play to get back in the game rather than going passive. So I would say you want to be like even more safe, take less safe trades if your team's winning really hardcore. And if your team is losing really hardcore, you need to like slide up the risk scale a little more. You might have to take some, fights where there's only a 30% chance you can win if in the next 5 minutes you might only have a 20% chance to win. If you're bleeding out resources, sometimes you just got to take the best you can get, even if it's a bad situation. So I think it's the exact opposite of what a lot of people think. A lot of people think you should be taking crazier risks. If you're 20-2 as Talon, you should definitely go in and try to 1v9, for fun. It's like, no, you shouldn't. You should be playing safe, protect your shutdown gold, and just slowly close out the game, or close out as fast as you can, but like in a very methodical way using smart macro. Not just trying to bulldoze your way through off of sheer gold if you can help it. Versus if you're really far behind, you got to look for those picks and not be too scared to take opportunities when you have a chance. Anyways, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed this. Sorry this was a little bit of a longer video, but hope I got a lot of information out there for you. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really does help out a ton on the channel. If you'd like to sponsor a guide yourself, just email me at thestrategyprofessor@gmail.com. Happy to set that up for you, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day.